Good morning. My name is Claudio Pastrana, and the purpose of this oral presentation is to analyze an English as foreign language textbook in order to make suggestions for improvement of the reading skill. First of all, let me talk briefly about this presentation structure. First, I will explain which teaching skill I will work with and why. Then we will take a look at the book's index and to how the reading activities are presented. Finally, we will move on to some of the improvements I plan to get the most of it. So let's talk about the reasons for my selection. I choose the book Trends merely because it's part of the syllabus of ES Joan Coromines. Wait, please bear with me 1 second. ES Joan Coromines is the secondary school where I'm going to attend my practicum. Okay, and why did I choose reading skill? Let me give you two reasons. First, the first reason is that on my TFM, my trabajo final de master, I will work with the subject of literature, and I don't need to tell you how deeply intertwined reading and literature are. The second one is that the second reason is that I consider reading a foundational skill when learning a second or third language. In relation to this, let me recall one personal experience. We have to go back maybe 25 years ago. I was starting to learn English and I came across the following expression: washing spiders down the drain. I already knew that washing was somehow related to cleaning, and I couldn't figure why we needed to clean the spider before getting rid of it. So what I want to say is that the obscurity of this phrase triggered my curiosity, and that is why I think that when it's properly developed in class, reading entices students to know more. The bottom line is that I think that it's an amazing tool in order to motivate our students. While I'm continue with this, with the next part, I would like to invite to the audience to recall their first encounter with English language. I trust that more than one will share a similar experience. Okay. So this is the book. This is the cover of the book, Trends, Bachillerato 1, student's book. Let's take a look at the index. If you pay attention, please, to the reading section, we can see that the objectives are predicting content, guessing meaning from context, reading for general understanding, scanning for information. I think that these objectives concur with some of the suggestions presented by Farrell. So what I want to say is that this book is not so out of date, but I think that in addition to this, it needs some improvement. But let's take a look at the unit we have that I have chosen. Is unit number 8. It's a unit that deals with multiculturality. So this is the unit, Crickets for Dinner. Regarding the pre-reading activity of the book, I understand the purpose behind trying to activate previous knowledge on exercise 1. However, this question might fall short since it's not motivating enough. The reason is the following. Since I remember, every textbook of EFL has a chapter dealing with multiculturalism. And I would like to raise the following question. Do we really have to teach about different cultures to teenagers already immersed in a multicultural world? And That is why I think this topic is worn out. Um, if we focus on activity number 2, we can see that it deals with reading strategies. I think this is valid since it's one of the strategies already pointed out by Farrell. However, the action of connecting a topic with a paragraph by reading only the first sentence seems too mechanic, and more important, doesn't entice students to read more but less. They can easily get the answer by only reading the first sentence and stop paying attention. The rest of the exercises, from number 3 to number 5, follow the pattern of the 10 question syndrome, since they are testing instead of teaching. Finally, exercise number 6 and the false friends section might be helpful for the acquisition of new vocabulary, but I reckon they are directed to memorizing rather than improving reading skills. Let's move on to the didactic purpose. The first pre-reading task, it is a hands-on activity. We will introduce the topic of food change in this case. Books closed, flashcards will be provided, and this flashcard will present several species names, such as animals, insects, of course with crickets among them, plants, and the human being. The students will have to organize the flashcards according to their place in the food chain. If there are no flashcards available, this activity can be easily done writing the species names on the board. Um, and moving on. After 2 or 3 rounds, the teacher will ask them why they think the human being is on the top of the food chain. On the food chain. So the idea is that if we put their previous knowledge in motion, they will be more receptive to the ideas presented by the text. Um, the second part of the pre-reading is predicting content. We will show them the title of the article, Crickets for Dinner, to the students, and conduct a very brief questioning with questions such as, what do you think the article is about? Based on the title, where do you think we can find this type of text? And how can you connect this title with the previous exercise? The idea is that they start developing a connection between the previous exercise, this questioning, and the text that is coming next. So, in the during reading tasks, we will use directed reading. We will start by reading the first 2 paragraphs. On this part, it's important that the teacher stresses the strategy developed in this chapter. We are referring to identifying the main idea of a paragraph, since it's a valid and useful one. He or she can also explain learners that, as stated in the book, one way to do it, identify the main idea, is to pay attention to the first sentence of the paragraph. Once the first 2 paragraphs have been read out loud, the teacher can ask students some of the following questions. After this, we continue with the reading of the remaining text, and once they have finished, we will propose 2 or 3 final questions, but in order to make them think, not to check comprehension. So the questions can be: do you think at some point in the future we will have to eat insects in order to survive? Do you think eating insects can be a way of adapt to the shortage of food supply in the future? And finally, what do you think is the main idea of the text? The objective of this final question is that they provide different answers. Um, Why? Because if they don't agree on the answer to this last exercise, you may suggest that there is no right answer when trying to interpret the text. It has to do with our background and our interests. For example, for those concerned with ecological issues, this text might be about the risk of not taking care of our planet. For people who are open to new experiences, it can be about trying or tasting new flavors. And for those who find bugs disgusting, well, it's going to be just about nasty food. Um, Okay, we are reaching the last activity. To conclude the session, the teacher will introduce the notion of dystopia in relation to the challenges of the future, such as the one we already discussed, such as food shortage and starvation. And as a wrap up, the teacher will read out three different futuristic scenarios, and the students will have to decide and explain in their home language, if they prefer, which one fits better with a society where insects are the only food available. To conclude, the teacher will explain that these summaries belong to actual novels. 1984, Brave New World, and Fahrenheit 451. In this fashion, the teacher will connect this piece of text with actual, with authentic material. Since we're running out of time, I think I will draw briefly some conclusions. First of all, let me tell you, let me comment on on how challenging this assignment was, but challenging in a good way. Secondly, I would like to stress that the textbook I analyze represents a current trend, no, in a current trend, as its own title says. I think it stands halfway between outdated approaches and new proposals. And finally, I think that teachers need to be creative in order to overcome the multiple shortcomings of traditional methods. That's all. Thank you for your time, and any suggestions are welcome.